r/AskReddit. Parents, what is the most shocking thing you've heard/witnessed/experienced upon meeting your child's new boyfriend/girlfriend? Walked into the house and found my 15-year-old son balls deep in his 14-year-old girlfriend, her laid out on the oak dining room table while he was pounding away from a standing position. When I first heard the noise I thought he was watching porn on the downstairs computer and thought it'd be funny, dad humor, to sneak up on him and yell, "Well, what have we got here?" Did not expect a live sex show featuring my firstborn. They didn't see me for some indeterminate amount of time, and I froze in a sort of brain lock WTF moment. The sex itself didn't really shock me that much, it was the whole porn scene element. The girl went to a religious school, and they had to wear those schoolgirl outfits, and she hadn't bothered to take off anything other than her panties, so my son was enacting a scene right out of an adult film, on the table. What really put the whole thing over the top is that the girl came explosively, screaming, bucking, a few seconds after I walked in, and she saw me, shocked face, jaw hitting the floor, as she was coming down from heaven. In retrospect, thought, I'm rather proud of my boy. God knows I never got to bang a religious schoolgirl on my parents' dining room table, nor do the deed well enough at 15 to give her the time of her life. I had to be responsible and rehash the talk afterwards, of course, but really, I just wanted to give him a high five and a job well done. Not a parent, but I met my high school girlfriend's parents when they returned early from a long walk to find us 69ing on their family room couch. I was calmly and sternly asked to leave the house. Then I proceeded to back my dad's car over a random tool lying in the middle of their driveway, popping a tire and causing a loud clunking noise with every tire rotation. I had already fucked up with her parents. I wasn't going to ruin my dad's car and have him kill me too, so I attempted a speedy tire change in the driveway, praying her parents were busy elsewhere. I couldn't find which tire had blown or what caused it. One of the front tires seemed flatter, so I started changing it. As I did, her garage door opens. Her father is in his car attempting to leave for work, and I have now blocked his driveway. He stayed in his running car the entire time I changed the tire, and as I finished, started the car and began backing out of the driveway again, I heard clunk and realized I had in fact changed the wrong tire. So I pulled to the side of the driveway to let him leave and allow me to change the correct tire. Instead, he stayed in his running car, watching me the entire time. He wasn't going to leave until the dumbass who defiled his daughter on his family room couch and spent 20 minutes changing a wrong tire left his property. A week later, my girlfriend hands me a check from her parents to cover the cost of the tire, as it was their fault for leaving the tool in the driveway. My dad had already bought new tires, so I spent the money on beer. My grandma told me about a neighbor family that had a bit of a spat, as she called it, out in their front lawn. The daughter was all in tears and trying to get away from the boyfriend. I guess they were probably in their late teens, early 20s, and this was in the 1950s. The father came out to run the boyfriend off. The father was known as the meekest, kindest guy on the street. When the father comes out the door, the young man got really mad and said something to the effect of, "This is what you get for dragging your parents into our problem," and flat punched her. Grandma said he hit her really hard. The dad went postal. He was a veteran, as many men of his age were then, and grandma said it showed as he unleashed upon him. She never witnessed such savagery in her life. He beat the boyfriend for 15 solid minuets, and as sirens were heard in the distance approaching, he went inside and re-emerged with a large knife and cut both the boyfriend's hands off about midway between his wrists and elbows. Then, sat sobbing for an hour on the sidewalk with his daughter. She said he was never arrested and that the boyfriend turned out to be a wanted man. Edit. Upon further inquiry to another family member, the daughter was pregnant. The punch the boyfriend landed on the daughter was to her stomach. The sirens were the ambulances after she started to bleed, and the big knife was a cavalry saber. When the dad swung the sword, the boy put his arms up in defense, and that was that. Edit 2. I have no clue why he was wanted. This was a story I was told when I was 10 decades ago. I asked my aunt about the rest of the details after I posted my first time. My rendition was how I remembered being told of it as a child. My aunt didn't witness it firsthand. She was shoved inside as we were all the young kids. She was told what happened later on. Not really on topic, but this is one for the parents who make snap judgments about kids' choices of who they date. TL. DR18Y/O and a girl uses fat me to piss off parents and dad has some hateful shit to say about me and I tell him and her off. Fast forward 12 years, I'm a paramedic and I revived dad after a heart attack and get epic karma payback when he asks to meet the person who saved his life. I know it's a wall of text, but I'm on my phone. I'll try and get on Calm later to format. This all started when I was 18, I'm now 30. I had just graduated EMT training and was out with some friends celebrating, and this beautiful girl that had been in the nursing program at our school started chatting me up. I had spoken to her a few times at school, mostly hi, how are you, etc. Well, we end up going on a few dates, mostly just dinner, a movie, the usual, and she asks if I want to come with her to her family cookout that weekend. Well, obviously I said sure, why not, and went to meet her family. I'll pause here to add that at the time I was 329 pounds, so not a small guy, and I'm 6'5". However, I had also lost almost 100 pounds before going to school with her, which she did not know at this point. I fought a thyroid disorder all through middle and high school and worked my ass off to get my weight under control and find the right medication. So I wasn't just a fat lazy bum as some might call me. I knew from some of our conversations that this girl was really into physical fitness and the like. I told her that I was going to the gym and trying to lose at least 100 pounds, and she seemed encouraging and offered to even go with me. Well, the weekend cookout comes along and I meet the parents. We get there and everyone's outside cooking out and enjoying the pool, etc. I've never had a body image issue or problems with my man boobs, so I take off my shirt and join in after meeting the parents and having what I thought was a good first talk. I notice while I'm sitting talking to one of her relatives, I think I was her uncle, that she's giving me these weird looks. Well, about an hour later I ask someone where the bathroom is, and when walking in the house to find it, I overhear this girl and her father talking in the kitchen. I'm not usually a person to spy on someone, but I couldn't help myself. I figured the dad was telling her I wasn't good for her or something. I was right on both accounts, lol. What I heard was I didn't spend my life working hard and sending you to private school and buying you anything you desired, so you could end up with some fat slob piece of shit like that out there. He has zero respect for himself. How can you expect him to respect you? Well, I was a little pissed at this point, so I figured I'd back out and leave and call her later and see how she wanted to handle this, if we needed to call it quits or what. Before I could turn around though, I hear her reply, I only brought him home to piss you and mom off. I find him disgusting, but it's worth it to let you know you can't tell me what to do. Yay. So at this point I'm really pissed off. Upon hearing this, I walk into the kitchen and let my feelings be known. I informed her dad that yes, I'm fat, but how about I was 430 pounds just a year and a half ago and still losing weight, and sorry I wasn't born with perfect genes that made me fit and perfect in his eyes, but as he stated, he worked hard to provide it for his daughter. I worked damn hard to overcome my challenges and will continue to work on them. After that I turned to the daughter and said I was glad I could be her token fat guy for the day, and if she'd pack me a few racks of ribs I'd take my fat happy ass home. Fast forward about 12 years and I had gone back to school and graduated with my paramedic certs. I'm at this time about 230 lbs. I'm still a big dude, but it's a lot of muscle, and I just have a large frame to begin with. Well, I was on the ambulance and received a call for a patient in cardiac arrest. Went en route, hit the lights, and hauled ass to the call. Upon arriving to the scene, we are directed to the patient, and I honestly stopped dead in my tracks as I round the corner and realize the patient is the girl's dad. After about a 2-second well ain't that a bitch pause, I immediately began intubating him, and my partner get our monitor set up while a fire crew member takes over compressions. We work him for about 3 or 4 minutes on scene and decide to move him to the truck. Once loaded and en route to the ER, I continue working on him in the box. After about another 4 minutes I finally get a shockable rhythm and proceed to try and jumpstart his heart. Takes about 4 rounds, but finally get his heart in an NSR, normal sinus rhythm, and get him to the ER. I turn him over to the docs and went back in service just thinking how much of a bitch karma was that Mr. Fit had a heart attack when I was the fat slob piece of shit, and how ironic it was that I'd be the one responding to that call. Well, about a week later I get a call from the hospital that a patient I brought in wants to thank me. After learning it was this gentleman and he donates a large sum to the hospital, and getting the PR speech from the suits at the hospital, I'm thinking this is going to end bad. I made my way over to the hospital after shift, and when I got to his room I realize when I walk in he has zero memory of me. Not surprising since it was so long ago, but I have also changed a lot physically. He thanks me. I do the usual adjust my job speech etc. Well, I was thinking cool, got past this, no drama, it's over, all good. Not so fast. He proceeds to tell me it's frustrating that even guys like us, in good physical shape, that take care of themselves can still have heart attacks, while there's people out there that eat anything they want, weigh God knows what, and still walk around with luck. Yay, pissed off me came back, but I held it for a while and said yay, but that's just the way life is, and try and work my out of there. Just as I'm about to cut and run, it hits me what I can say without being a total ass and pissing off the docs outside. As I'm walking out I tell him glad I could help him out, and it's not bad work for a guy who used to be a fat slob piece of shit. I turned around and walked out, but I noticed that little light of recognition in his eye as I left. That was about 6 months ago, and I've received several messages from him since then wanting to meet and talk, but I've ignored them as I really have no desire to hear what he has to say. At best it's an apology for how he acted back then. At worst he'll try and take me to task for being an asshole to him, and I'm good without it either way. Moral I guess is, always treat others how you want to be treated, as someday you may need them, or something like that. Not a parent, but brought home a bad one. When I was a hormonal 13-year-old I started talking to this hormonal 17-year-old. Let's call her C. So we had been talking, sending pics, all that normal stuff for maybe 2 days so far. Being young and impatient, I wanted her the first chance I could. That first chance just happened to be when my best friend, Zed, was over as well. So when this girl gets here she lets herself in. No knock or anything, doesn't introduce herself to the parents, and just walks by to the next room where Zed and I are watching a shitty zombie movie. She sits next to me, and within 5 minutes the blanket is up, and you can guess what she is doing underneath. My friend knows, but being a close friend he is silently cheering me on. My parents more than likely know as they have to walk by to get to the kitchen. So Zed's parents come and pick him up. As soon as he is gone C and I go to the bathroom, where she goes down on me. As most disappointing teenagers are, I finish within 5 minutes. I go get some water while she cleans up, and my dad corners me and says she has got to go now. So I weasel her out a bit, and then get a firm talking to from my parents about how rude her entrance was, and how they didn't think she was good at all. We go to fool around for the next 3 months, lose my V card to her in a mall. I was the boyfriend. My GF at the time brought me to her place to meet her parents. I was excited, so I wasn't as observant as I usually am going into her house. The thing is, I'm more on the tall side, so the first thing her parents see of me is me striding into the living room, hitting my head on the top of the door frame, and taking a chunk of drywall out and falling to the floor. I was out cold. When I came to, I found they had collectively picked me up and put me on their couch. I felt my forehead, and there was a bump about the size of a lime, which hurt like hell. I later found out I had a mild concussion. Anyway, her family was super cool about it, and her dad told me not to worry about the hole I put in the drywall, and said I could stay as long as I needed to until I felt like I could get up and move around, or whatever. He then told me that if there was anything I needed to just let him know. As he was walking away, I called out to him and said that there was just one small thing. "What's that?" he asked. "I'm gonna need about 350. Being the horny little deviant fucks I and one of my high school girlfriends were, we decided to play footsie under a blanket. That lead to me toe fucking her. Did I mention her 80-some-year-old grandmother was sitting right by us? We thought we were so discreet. After I left the house, I later found out from her that her mom had been wise to us and smacked the shit out of her. The first time I met her mother was after being caught out after curfew with her daughter on our first date. I convinced her to go to our old empty house my parents were trying to sell after we had moved. The one time my mom waits up for me, I decide to stay out, thinking the worst. She calls my dad, and he goes to her parents' house looking for me. We saunter out to my truck, and I find my parents have been trying to call me on my cell phone. I call my mom, and she rips me a new one. I then had to drive her home and walk into her living room at 3 in the morning and explain to her mom, who I had never met, and my dad, that we had spent the last few hours alone in an empty house. I did so many stupid things like that in my youth. I'm honestly surprised I did not get the living shit beat out of me by an angry father. I deserved it too. This is from the other side. I was the boyfriend, and this is how you charm a mother at first meeting her. I was dating a girl long distance for around 3 years. I even stayed at her dorm while she was away from home at college. All that her mom knew about me was that I was from Detroit and we met in a poetry chat room. She lied about this. It was actually RuneScape lol. Anyways, I helped my girlfriend move into college into a new dorm 1 year. I stayed a week at her house and a week at her dorm. I met her dad at the airport. He came to pick me up, along with my GF. I told him that it was nice to finally meet him, and shook his hand. I'm usually a nervous wreck, so I was freaking out in the car, right to her house. When we got to the house I didn't really know what to say to her mom. We walked up to the door, and her mom opened it. She just said hi, obviously as nervous as I was. Again, I was from Detroit, and my GF was from Northern Virginia. I just opened my arms and asked if I could hug her. Her mom got a huge smile on her face. 4 years later my girlfriend talked about that first hug had made her mom love me. When I was 16 I met this girl who went to high school across town through a buddy who was dating her friend. Our parents were pretty liberal, and we spent most of our weekends getting high and drunk in the pool house and swimming when we wanted to cool off. Needless to say, it took about 3 days before I lost my V card to this girl, and it was the awesomest. Here's the thing, when you're 16 and you find a girl who is TTF you never let that go. I was immediately her boyfriend. Despite the fact that I didn't know that much about her, I knew everything that I needed to know. She had a vagina, and she let me put my dick in it. Week 2 of this torrid romance and something isn't quite right in the land down under. It was really burning when I pissed. Like every time, I went to Catholic school, so I knew all about how Satan invades extramarital sex and fills your lust pole with STDs. I knew I had one. The only question was which one. A lot of people would ask, this chick just gave you dick rot, you dumped her right? Let me just refer you to the previous statement. I was 16, and she was letting me have sex with her. We only got more serious, like getting close to meet the parents serious. But love didn't cure whatever evil was festering in my penis, and I had to schedule a doctor's appointment. In the exam room, I had to fess up to my doctor, who I had always secretly suspected of being gay, my terrible suspicions that I had 3rd-degree dick rot with a chance of AIDS. I had to pee in a cup, and he manually examined my penis. He asked me why I suspected I had caught an STD, and, in the spirit of doctor-patient confidentiality, I told him everything. Which came out to, I met a random girl from across town and I've been humping her everywhere. Pool, bushes, suburbans, rugs, carpets, dirt piles. I don't know much about her, but if she's willing to sex me up, she's probably kind of a slut. It took a week, but the results came back. I had a benign UTI, most likely from bareback riding in dirt piles. Clean it up was his advice. That was a giant relief, and a fuck you to Sister Helen who had convinced me that God punishes all fornicators with a lifelong curse of dick fire. Everything seemed to be great, the penis problem cleared up, and this girl and I kept seeing each other. After a few months she invited me to her family dinner. Her mom was nice and pretty hot. Her dad was my doctor. I was over at my boyfriend's family's house for Easter where we all got together for an Easter egg hunt, dinner, and party games. My boyfriend's middle sister had recently started seeing a guy she met on eHarmony, who apparently lived in Toronto. She spent the afternoon telling us about him, that he owned a delivery business and a flower shop, was originally from somewhere in Africa, but moved to England and then here, etc etc. My boyfriend's brother joked that he was a drug dealer for his delivery business, and we laughed as she tried to defend him. So he finally drives up in a very expensive car, wearing a t-shirt with arrows pointing to the shoulders and the caption "Place legs here" written across the chest. Everyone started interrogating him, but he was avoidant of everything. I worked in a flower shop for 7 years, and he couldn't name any flowers. Granted his English wasn't perfect, and he was very awkward, but the drug dealer possibility became more likely as time went on. Afterwards he went full-blown creepy stalker. She broke up with him, since he couldn't explain anything, and he sent her 40+ text messages trying to get her back. Wrote poems about how much it hurt to miss her, and said he dropped by her work. She blocked his number, reported him on eHarmony, and everyone in the family has sworn a pact to immediately call police if we see him anywhere. It was like standing next to a train wreck as it happened. My most awkward meeting. I had met her mom briefly once before, of a girlfriend's parent, or parent. Yes, was 9 years ago, when I was 18. I was sitting on her mom's couch chatting with my girlfriend, while we texted each other dirty things. We would pretend to talk about being seniors, looking forward to graduating, etc. But we were really discussing the dirty and raunchy kind of teenage sex that abstinence-only education warned you about. As we texted more I started to get a little excited, nothing I couldn't control, but damn it felt dangerous and naughty, which got the adrenaline flowing. Her mom was in the kitchen the entire time cooking up a meal, leaving us to our secret naughty conversation. I told my then girlfriend to put her phone between her legs while it was on vibrate. She did, and I called her repeatedly. Watching her get hornier got me hornier. The blood must flow. There was no fighting it anymore. My dick was now hard, knowing she was ready for some primetime sexy times. Let's pause for a second and examine this situation. I'm sitting on the couch hard as a rock. She's sitting next to me with the phone between her legs while I haul it repeatedly. What 18-year-old guy wouldn't be aroused? I misjudged one thing: how quickly her mom could prepare an entire meal. Panic time. Her mom walked in the living room to tell us dinner was done, but it had to cool down a bit. She wanted to take this time to get to know me. I had met her once before, but only briefly. I'd only said hi to her at this point. She had perched on the arm of the love seat, which was at a 90-degree angle to the couch we were sitting on. She sat there like a judging vulture disguised as Betty Homaker. Her voice and smile were gentle, but her eyes were fiery and alive, like she plucked them from Hannibal Lecter's head. Are you excited to graduate? Yes, ma'am. When I'm nervous I get really polite. Are you too hungry? I made enough to feed everyone and send its Ganajatwood home with plenty of leftovers. Thank you, ma'am. My boner was about to burst through my pants. My balls were starting to hurt from all the trapped blood. Or me, Kathy, or mom if you want to. I'd rather not. In fact, I'd rather be sowing my wild oats in your daughter and praying for crop failure. Okay, Kathy, I'll remember that. Where are my manners? I almost forgot to mention that we hug in this family. Oh Christ, fuck. Please no. Not now at this exact moment. I haven't had the chance to covertly tuck my cock into the waistband of my jeans. Stand up and give me a hug, mister. No. There was no way I have escaped this situation without killing 2 people and hiding the bodies. I did it. I stood up and hugged this woman. As soon as it happened I could feel my dick press into her. She knew. I knew she knew because she backed away from it. As soon as she did, I had an involuntary dick twitch that for a split second pushed it back into her thigh. Fuck. We parted from our hug. We both tried to be polite, but the shame had set in. Dinner was awkward. I wolfed down my food without making eye contact with Kathy. I made an excuse to leave after dinner, went home, rubbed one out, and wallowed in shame and embarrassment. I was working at a pizza place in my teenage years and started talking to this girl. She came over one night when my parents were asleep. My mother is hard of hearing and my father is a rock when he's asleep. She comes over and we start fooling around and we pass out. I was thinking that since the next day was a work day, she could leave after they left for work. We wake up and we're both naked. So being 17 and looking at a naked girl, we start to fool around again. Then I go for the money shot and get some in her eye. She starts crying and saying it hurts a lot. We leave my room to go to the bathroom so she could watch her face. Now you have to pass the computer room to get to the bathroom, and guess who's sitting there? My mom. She took the day off to pick up my cousin from the airport and was on TMZ.com killing time. Her reaction was quite priceless and humiliating as she turned to say good morning and saw me and this girl she never met before but naked. And that was the last time she came over my house. Work was pretty awkward after that day too. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.